This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
The clock is ticking on the DRC Prime Minister to quit after a vote of no confidence by lawmakers, but his allies insist he will stay put. Africa has secured an additional 400 million doses of COVID-19 vaccines. And the United Nations warns that more than 8 million people in South Sudan face the risk of hunger. Hello and a very warm welcome to you wherever you're joining us. This is Africa Live only on CGTN. I'm Mahia Mutua in Nairobi. Penina Karibe joins me now with your business headlines.
Thank you, Mahia. Coming up on Africa Live Business, South African unions are back in court to demand dues for national carrier staff, and COVID-19 restrictions per online shopping in Egypt. I'll have details of those stories and plenty more in just a bit. For now, it's back to you, Mahia.
Penina, thank you. We start in the Democratic Republic of Congo, where lawmakers there have passed a motion to remove Prime Minister Sylvestre Ilunkamba from office. Ilunkamba is an ally of former President Joseph Kabila. Wednesday's ouster handed President Felix Tshisekedi a key victory in his quest to sideline Kabila's allies. In a statement, however, Ilunkamba has termed the censure motion as politically motivated. According to the DRC Constitution, the Prime Minister has 24 hours to quit after the vote. His removal now gives President Tshisekedi a chance to form a new coalition government. Well, let's now get more on that story. We're joined by Chris Ochamringa in Kinshasa. Chris, thank you for joining us. It is just about 24 hours since lawmakers voted to oust the Prime Minister. What is the latest on that now?
Well, we've heard a statement from Prime Minister Sylvestre Ilunkamba. He said he is not going to step down because the censure motion that happened yesterday was illegal, and it's something that's against the constitution of the DRC and the rules of the parliament. He says the person who presided over the censure motion, who is the oldest member of parliament, is there as an acting speaker of parliament. He does not have the powers to do so. He was nominated and approved by a substantive speaker of parliament last year, and he says according to the DRC law, it's only the substantive speaker who can preside over the censure motion. And so he's saying he's waiting for a letter from the parliament explaining, how many, the 367 MPs who voted him out of office, and then he'll take it from there. It's likely to be a long drawn out legal battle. Mahia?
And Chris, officials loyal to President Tshisekedi will now start the process of nominating individuals who will then go on to form a new government. What challenges lie ahead for unity in the country?
Well, very serious challenges, I must say, because, the DRC is a country that has had conflict for over 2 decades. In the eastern part of the country, there are people who are being killed every day by militia groups, rebels from neighboring countries. And so this, the country saw the first peaceful handover of power in 2018 when President Tshisekedi took over from his predecessor, Joseph Kabila. Now, the two leaders came together and formed a coalition government because President Tshisekedi did not have a majority in parliament. But they could not work together. There were lots of disputes about how to appoint key officials in government positions and generally issues to do with the government. So President Tshisekedi last December decided to end the coalition, and he said he wants to form a majority in parliament and the government. And that's why we saw last December the Speaker of Parliament, Janine Mabunda, removed from office, and the next step was to target the Prime Minister. There are a number of claims or cases that have been brought against the Prime Minister. One of them was that he promised to end the conflict in the East, and he also promised to improve the economy. But the MPs were saying that he failed to do all those things, and that is the reason why they decided to censure him. But the bigger picture here is the power struggle between President Tshisekedi and President Tshisekedi and his predecessor Joseph Kabila. There have been two power centers in the DRC for quite a while, and the two leaders, have failed to agree on how to move the country forward. So President Tshisekedi decided to consult the public, who told him that, the people are sovereign. You have to do things for the best interest of the people. That is why he decided to end this coalition. There has already been some talk of secession in Haut-Katanga province, in the southern part of DRC. There are people, that is the area where, that's the hometown of the former President Joseph Kabila. And his people are saying that they're seeing a lot of disrespect by the current president towards their leader, and they're saying if this continues, then they will break away from the DRC. And that is something that is not a good sign at all for the country, that needs to be working together at this time when COVID-19, is claiming very many people, and there's a conflict in the east, and, generally the country needs to, unify so that to move things for the best interest of the people. Mahia?
All right, Chris, thank you very much for that. Chris, who's been bringing us the latest from the DRC, speaking to us live from Kinshasa. Moving on, the United Nations is warning that 8.3 million people in South Sudan are food insecure. The UN is now appealing for more funding to meet the humanitarian needs of the affected people. CGTN's Patrick Oyet reports.
The United Nations says the food insecurity results from intercommunal violence in parts of the country, as well as flooding for 2 consecutive years and the impact of COVID-19. The 5-year civil war officially ended in 2018, but the UN says more than 1.6 million people are still internally displaced. More children are acutely malnourished than in the past 3 years, and that 4.1 million children will need humanitarian assistance in the country. Some who were refugees are now returning to the country. However, lack of basic services, unresolved housing and land issues is preventing many returnees from farming.
Peace, security, rule of law, and development have to go together. Because one helps the other. And this is what my main purpose here is to make an appeal to those development actors out there, the World Bank, the big bilaterals. Come here with big resources now. Make an act of faith into the South Sudanese people. Otherwise, we will never get out of this year after year. There is a famine, there is an epidemic.
The UN says poor road networks are making humanitarian aid difficult to deliver. It says it will have to rely on food airdrops, which are 4 times more expensive than supplying aid by road, and it warns that acute food shortage could lead to more violence if communities start raiding each other for livestock. South Sudan's government says it is prioritizing the 2018 peace deal's implementation. It argues that the return of total peace in the country will ensure many South Sudanese people who are farmers can fend for themselves. Patrick Oyet, CGTN, Juba, South Sudan.
Senior United Nations officials on Wednesday hailed Somalis for their resilience since the 1991 civil war. During a virtual press conference in the capital, Mogadishu, UN envoy to Somalia, James Swan, paid tribute to citizens who've persevered through tough times since fighting broke out 30 years ago. Following the ouster of President Mohamed Siad Barre, tribal warlords disintegrated the national government. During the commemoration ceremony, delegates highlighted the UN support for Somalia. The world body has been involved in humanitarian support, mediation, and peacekeeping missions. Recently, the UN's mission in Somalia has been intervening to ensure national elections take place.
While enormous challenges remain and the road ahead at times looks long and hilly, it is important to acknowledge the progress that has been made. If we look at a range of measures, governance, the functioning of national and federal member state institutions, private sector investment, public financial management, delivery of services, to name a few, Somalia begins 2021 in a better place than 2011, and a better place than 2001, and a better place than the end of January 1991. I also want to stress that ultimately the work of the United Nations is an expression of objectives communicated by the broader international community.
Now, even as a 90-day deadline for foreign fighters to leave Libya expired this week, it appears that little has been achieved on the ground. That could spark tension in the country unless a military committee drawn from rival factions reaches an agreement to extend the deadline. Here is Adel Mahroui with more on that story now.
On 23rd October last year, Libyans signed a landmark agreement that ended all forms of hostilities. The deal was struck at UN-led talks. It included a 90-day grace period to evacuate all foreign fighters from the oil-rich nation. The deadline, however, expired this week without any progress on the ground.
I think foreign fighters are a direct threat to the political solution. We cannot hold elections in their presence.
The longer the fighters remain in Libya, the higher the risk of sparking another war. The Libyan National Army, countries in Europe or Egypt will not stay patient for long regarding their presence.
On 23 January, the UN support mission in Libya announced that countries, including Turkey, have renewed their commitment to back the departure of foreign fighters. But some experts doubt that any change could be seen soon.
The Libyan National Army is developing. It has jumped 10 positions in the global defense rank. This increasing strength creates concerns in the government of national accord. Turkish forces' withdrawal from Libya would give more leverage to the LNA. That will reflect into strategic losses and a kind of political defeat for GNA. It can affect its share of positions in the next government.
Libya has thousands of mercenaries and foreign fighters based there. This is in addition to several foreign military bases, most of which are Turkish. They mainly support the Western-based government of national accord.
Strategically, all these foreign fighters can leave in 48 hours if there is a will, a naval and air fleet, and this issue is over. Mercenaries can be evacuated through ships, some of which can carry up to 1,000 individuals. So we need about 20 trips. The arms and weapons came through sea and air. That can easily be reversed.
The eastern-based Libyan National Army led by General Khalifa Haftar also enjoys some foreign support. This is largely through a Russian paramilitary group. The United Nations has designated all military coordination to the 5+5 Joint Military Commission. It is looking over the ceasefire near the dividing line at the strategic city of Sirte. But experts believe the Commission doesn't have the power to evacuate foreign fighters or implement any of the UN's agreement's articles on its own. Adel Mahroui, CGTN, Cairo.
Let's turn to Nigeria now, where no fewer than 120,000 children die annually from pneumonia. This is according to new reports from aid agency Save the Children International. Pneumonia infection is common among children aged 5 and below and is a leading cause of childhood deaths in Nigeria. CGTN's Kelechi Emekalam reports.
Halima Bello is in hospital with her son Mohammed for a follow-up visit with his doctor. The 4-year-old had pneumonia and was admitted for over a week. Though out and recovering now, it was a torturous experience for the little boy.
He can't sleep well because of catarrh, serious catarrh. Then there's temperature, his running temperature, like 2 days. So I just said, let's come to the hospital because we cannot take things for granted. So we just rushed to the hospital. They admitted us emergency and they take good care of him.
Pneumonia is a life-threatening infection that inflames the air sacs in the lungs. The burden of pneumonia in children is still very high in Nigeria. Statistics from Save the Children puts the number of deaths at 120 yearly, making Nigeria the highest contributor to global deaths.
The vaccine uptake all over the world, especially in sub-Saharan Africa, is a problem. People don't want to take vaccines, and these are things that can actually prevent children from coming down with pneumonia. Consider rural areas where mothers are cooking. The baby is trapped at the back, you understand, and is cooking with firewood. So all the smoke that is coming from there is equally going to the baby that is at the back of the mother.
In Nigeria, it costs no less than $50 for the treatment of mild cases of pneumonia and twice as much for severe cases. That's a huge financial burden for the 40% of Nigerians who live below poverty line. The health risks are higher now that the country faces its second wave of the coronavirus.
We need to prevent infection by regular washing of our hands, and cough etiquette is very, very important. It's more important now that we now have another important viral agents out there, COVID, because they are all respiratory problems. So the best thing is for their children not to even have symptoms that will look like pneumonia, because if a child has a symptom that looks like pneumonia now, everybody will think is COVID.
The UN's Children's Agency, UNICEF, projects that without timely intervention, up to 2 million children could die from pneumonia in the next decade. Health workers are looking to government and its international partners to scale up intervention efforts to avert more deaths in the coming years. Kelechi Emekalam, CGTN Abuja, Nigeria.
Well, let's now get the latest from the World Economic Forum. Chinese President Xi Jinping has stressed the importance of innovation and technological advancement. In his speech, he said China will push for scientific development, expand investment in the field, and cooperate with other countries.
中国将加大科技投入，狠抓创新体系建设。
China will invest more in science and technology, develop an enabling system for innovation as a priority, turn breakthroughs in science and technology into actual productivity at a faster pace, and enhance intellectual property protection, all for the purpose of fostering innovation-driven, higher-quality growth. Scientific and technological advances should benefit all humanity, rather than be used to curb and contain other countries' development. China will think and act with more openness with regard to international exchange and cooperation on science and technology. We will work with other countries to create an open, fair, equitable, and non-discriminatory environment for scientific and technological advancement that is beneficial to all and shared by all.
You're watching Africa Live on CGTN. It's time for us to take a short break. Here's what's coming up when we return. The African Union secures an additional 400 million doses of COVID-19 vaccines.
No one again began holding guns. Machine guns from police forces toward the protesters.
Were you worried about your life at that particular time?
Not at all.
The activity, thank you very much for your time now. What is your assessment of the state of the continent today?
Africa has the potential to power itself.
Excuse me.
Welcome back and thank you for staying with us on Africa Live. Now, the African Union has secured an additional 400 million doses of COVID-19 vaccines. The doses will be dispersed across Africa. The director for the Africa CDC says the order was secured through the Serum Institute of India. John Nkengasong added all 400 million doses will be of the Oxford AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine. Earlier this month, the AU secured 270 million doses of COVID-19 vaccines from various manufacturers. Meanwhile, African countries have the ability to transport COVID-19 vaccines despite some logistical challenges. That is according to a representative from the World Health Organization, Dr. Rudy Eggers. CGTN's Enoch Sikolia spoke to him about how Africa could rely on existing facilities to roll out the vaccines.
Africa is set to acquire vaccines through a number of initiatives. The Global COVAX facility has secured close to 600 million doses for the continent.
The vaccines will then be distributed to those countries that have applied, and the country itself makes a prioritization: who will get the vaccine first, how much vaccine will be given, which parts of the country will get it.
COVAX is led by the World Health Organization and the Gavi Vaccine Alliance. The initiative aims to equitably distribute COVID-19 vaccines across the world.
So COVAX provides for 20% of the population.
Surely 20% is limiting when you look at the population of most African countries.
The problem is that there's not that much vaccine availability, and the main interest that WHO has is that there's equity, that all people, all countries of the world actually have access to some vaccine. The problem is if one country takes all the vaccines, then the other country will get no vaccine.
Countries have been placed into two groups depending on their financial strength.
So the first group, actually, they will be provided with donations, the vaccine, including Kenya. The COVAX facility will be a donation. Other countries that have got more financial means can also apply for that vaccine, but then on own cost. They will have to procure it themselves.
With variants that are even more contagious emerging, the race to acquire the now precious COVID-19 vaccines is on.
So I think almost all countries have applied. I don't have the exact figures, but almost all African countries have applied that are eligible.
The African Union has also secured 270 million vaccines doses for distribution across the continent. But it is not just the purchase of vaccines that poses a challenge for Africa. There is also the challenge of transporting some vaccines, like the Pfizer vaccine, that must be kept at the extremely low temperature of -70 degrees Celsius. Dr. Eggers, however, says there are other options for Africa. The Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine can be kept at standard refrigerator temperatures of 2 to 8 degrees Celsius.
Most of the COVAX countries actually prefer the more regular vaccines, the vaccines that can fit into the regular fridges and the regular cold chain, because all countries have got a cold chain. They're running their normal vaccine programs. I don't have a doubt that a country such as Kenya will be able to distribute the vaccines. I mean, we give vaccines every day to children all the time, so the ability to do that is there.
In the meantime, Dr. Eggers is encouraging African governments to try and acquire more vaccines for their people. Enoch Sikolia, CGTN, Nairobi, Kenya.
China says it will continue to work with the WHO on pandemic control and preparations for health emergencies. Chinese Health Minister Mahia Mutua spoke by phone with the WHO's Director General about enhancing communication and cooperation. Ma said China will continue to support the WHO research team in carrying out a scientific, objective, comprehensive and balanced assessment of the coronavirus pandemic. Tedros thanked China for its arrangements with the international expert team in central China's Wuhan city and expressed satisfaction with the progress so far. Well, the international expert team from the WHO has completed a 14-day quarantine in Wuhan. They're in the country to carry out research on the origins of the coronavirus. The Chinese Foreign Ministry says the expert team will be conducting interviews and discussions in compliance with China's pandemic prevention regulations. Beijing has urged against politicizing the team's research in Wuhan.
Any preconceived notions, assumptions, negative speculations, or even attempts to politicize interpretation is inappropriate. It will disrupt research in cooperation with WHO expert team in China. It is not conducive to drawing genuine scientific conclusions. We hope the United States, together with China, will respect facts, science, and the hard work of the international expert team so that they can carry out virus tracing efforts without political interference.
And returning to East Africa, a Kenyan chef based in Uganda is making face shields for a living during the COVID-19 pandemic. Jacob Omondi says the growing demand for protective gear pushed him to make the career change. CGTN's Hilary Ayesiga reports.
Jacob Omondi designs face shields out of plastic and paper. He's a chef turned craftsman.
I'm feeling more happier because when I make face shields, one, the person who is producing the trans paper will get his money. The person who is selling elastic is also going to get something small. The boy in Nkrumah Road who is making for me the badges will also get something small. The border person who is going to transport my face shields is going to get something. So me being in that creativity kind of life, so many people are also getting a share out of it.
Omondi employs about 5 people in his face shield business. In a day, they make about 500 face shields. The price tag for each shield is $1.05.
During this time of COVID, we could say that it has been a terrible thing to us as Ugandans, but it was like an obstacle, but we found that an obstacle, we made it an opportunity because we we learned how to make masks and we could get and earn a living.
But the business faces stiff competition from other manufacturers. To keep his business afloat, Omondi markets his face shields in the community.
With the customers, he or she will see that it's hygienic, it's very clear, it's clean. You know, they will feel at home when you're transacting with them.
The Uganda government is urging citizens to follow COVID-19 guidelines by social distancing, washing hands frequently with soap, and wearing masks. And as Ugandan authorities continue to ease restrictions, health workers are also urging people to use protective gears like this one to help reduce infection rates in the country. But they are concerned that some people are ignoring the health recommendations and causing an upsurge in COVID-19 cases.
We just need to intensify our prevention measures. Already people are crowding, people are not wearing masks, they're not taking all the measures. So that is a worry, of course.
Uganda has registered over 39,000 cases and 318 deaths. The hope is that community initiatives like Omondi's face shields can help curb the spread of COVID-19 in the country. Hilary Ayesiga, CGTN, Kampala, Uganda.
To South Africa now, where nearly half of the protea plant family, from which the country's national flower heralds, is facing serious threats of extinction. Climate change and competing plant species are pushing certain species of proteas to the brink. CGTN's Travers Andrews has more with this report.
The king protea is South Africa's national flower, but it's part of a family of plants that are facing serious threats of extinction. The country has 365 protea species, nearly half of which are threatened. An expert at the South African National Biodiversity Institute, or SANBI, explains that some species are down to single digits.
We have 37 species that are on the brink of extinction. Literally, a number of our proteas are down to 1 individual, 3 individuals hanging on in a tiny little fragment of vegetation. These are seriously, on the brink of going extinct. And what we're looking at here is that they need emergency recovery action, and they need to be grown horticulturally and reintroduced in order to be able to save them from extinction.
While proteas occur in other regions in the southern hemisphere, experts say it is South Africa's species that faces the biggest threats. The outlook is especially stark in the country's Fynbos region, despite being a Western Cape biodiversity hotspot.
The major problem for these protea species is that they're losing habitat. They're losing habitat to agriculture, to urban development, coastal development across our country, but also across the world. We're seeing the same kind of threats happening in Australia and in other places. Our biggest issue really that we face at the moment is a new threat, which is the spread of invasive alien species, which over the last 10 years has become quite severe across the Cape Floral region.
To such a degree that invasive species are now adapting far better than proteas to seasonal vegetation fires, which both rely on for much needed soil space. Experts say some critically endangered species need emergency recovery action so that they can be horticulturally grown and reintroduced in order to save the species from extinction. Now, they've also said that protea sales in the cut flower industry has had no effect on wild populations because they are sustainably harvested. Travis Andrews, CGTN, Cape Town.
On to Senegal now, where 750 pelican birds have been found dead at a bird sanctuary. Officials at the Juge sanctuary say 740 of the dead were chicks, while 10 of them were adults. The incident has led to the closure of the park and burning of the carcasses. Recently, Senegal reported the H5N1 bird flu at a poultry farm in the Thiès region in the south of the country. It is still not clear what the cause of the deaths was. The bird sanctuary was inscribed as a World Heritage Site in 1981. Well, it's just about time for us to check in on all the latest from the world of business. Penina is back with the highlights.
Thank you, Mahia. And coming up on Africa Live Business. South African unions are back in court to demand dues for national carrier staff. And COVID-19 restrictions per online shopping in Egypt.
How will your world change today? What happens here? What happens there? Or what you make happen for yourself? If it matters to you, it matters to us too. Your stories are the stories that need to be told. Africa Live. Find your voice.
Business in Africa is at the crossroads, where opportunity meets innovation, where profitable new markets collide with global trends. From the sound of an African bell on a stock market's floor, to the shout of the trader in a bustling free market. It's colorful, vibrant, and exotic. CGTN stands at the gateway to Europe, Africa, and the Middle East. From Morocco to South Africa, we talk to the deal makers and actors who fuel its engines of growth. Only on CGTN.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
The South African Airways rescue saga is back in the Labour Court. The National Union of Metal Workers of South Africa and the SA Cabin Crew Association are seeking an order that the airline be compelled to pay all their members their outstanding salaries. The unions want payment to their members made within 7 days. SAA rescue practitioners stopped paying salaries last May when they effectively mothballed the airline. CGTN's Angela Kupler has more from Johannesburg.
Despite the mothballing, SAA's prospects appear to be improving despite global issues.
The prospects for SAA are quite intriguing. On one hand, financially, things are probably looking brighter now than they were a year ago. Government has managed to start getting money flowing, but not enough. So far, they've dispersed nearly $85 million last week, another $45.5 million to be paid over this week. That's to recapitalize 3 of SAA's subsidiaries, which interestingly are not actually included in the business rescue. And they follow a $98 million cash injection that was made to the business rescue for the airline in December.
Some of the long-awaited bailout money from National Treasury was recently released to the business rescue practitioners, but a court case continues, initiated by the 2 major labour unions against the business rescue practitioners and Public Enterprises Minister Pravin Gordhan.
We wish we didn't have to do this. I mean, in a normal situation, the employer would simply pay employees, but we are dealing here with a Department of Public Enterprises that is, in our view, completely unsympathetic to the plight of employees and is actually willing to blackmail them in this way, where because they're not willing to sign an unlawful agreement, they're now going to be denied payment of their salaries. So really the blame for the suffering that workers are being forced to endure rests squarely on the shoulders of the Minister of Public Enterprises, Pravin Gordhan.
There is other pressure, as the global air travel industry is seen by many aviation analysts as tepid, and this includes Africa and South Africa.
It remains to be seen what impact the vaccination programs have around the world. And remember, they're not all moving at the same pace. And in South Africa, we are lagging. So it really remains to be seen just how quickly economies can be revived and how soon and how strongly the demand recovers for air transport, and especially for passenger travel, and specifically business travel, which is the lifeblood of a lot of airlines.
With those storm clouds still hanging over the South African aviation sector, many of the local airlines are pulling flights as we get deeper into this COVID-19 lockdown. And globally, the picture doesn't look any better, with aviation experts suggesting that we will only see a recovery around 2024. This doesn't bode well for SAA. I'm Angelo Coppola for CGTN in Johannesburg, South Africa.
Meanwhile, South Africa's government has launched a nearly $80 million fund aimed at reviving the country's ailing tourism industry. The Tourism Equity Fund will also be used to help black entrepreneurs start businesses and projects in the sector. Between international travel bans, curfews and capacity limitations, South Africa's tourism industry lost almost $5 billion during the months of hard lockdown, as CGTN's Olisa Njamela now explores.
Tourism-dependent businesses have suffered major economic losses as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. Amongst other things, land border closures and travel restrictions have meant fewer holidaymakers are making their way here to South Africa. The tourism industry is regarded as one of the key contributors to this country's economy.
Tourism directly accounts for 2.9 thereabouts of South Africa's GDP. And they also account for 8.6% indirectly. Now, this industry supports about 1.5 million direct and indirect jobs. This is a sector that is, in the main, labor intensive and therefore has immense job creation potential. It supports a vibrant and complex value chain.
President Cyril Ramaphosa was speaking during the virtual launch of the Tourism Equity Fund. The fund will be used in particular to help black entrepreneurs enter the tourism sector with better ease.
If the tourism industry is to play its role in aiding the economic recovery in the wake of COVID-19, it must grow and transform. So this effort that we are all about today is going to contribute to this sector growing, but at the same time it must transform. A fund that facilitates the participation of black entrants, but also more importantly, facilitate the entrance of women enterprises and persons with disabilities.
Small black-owned businesses in the tourism sector can, in the next 3 years, receive funding to elevate their enterprises. During the launch of the fund, the president emphasized that while the COVID-19 lockdown has had a devastating effect on the tourism sector, he's confident that it will bounce back because of its resilient nature.
Tourism will come back, as it has always come back in the past. It will continue to contribute in an immense way to the economy of our country.
The South African Economic Reconstruction and Recovery Plan, a plan touted to revive the country's economy, has identified the tourism industry as one of the major priority areas. Olisa Njamela for CGTN in Johannesburg, South Africa.
Online shopping sales in Egypt have surged by 72% since early last year, buoyed by the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic. According to a report by the MasterCard Economics Institute, the trend towards cashless transactions in Egypt is expected to grow as more people embrace e-commerce. CGTN's Yasser Hakim with more on this report.
Measures imposed to curb the spread of COVID-19, including lockdowns, work-from-home directives, and social distancing guidelines, have contributed to a surge in online activity and e-commerce in the North African state. Shaymet Youssef is an Egyptian employee who has been more active on the web during the last year.
I was forced to go online due to the lockdown and curfews. I was not able to take part in physical shopping, so I started online shopping. I discovered it was so easy, and I've been using it a lot since then, buying clothes, gifts for friends, perfumes and such. For me, it's become a new hobby while locked up at home.
With sales massively hit by the restrictions, many businesses, including restaurants and shops, were facing the threat of a shutdown and had to convert to accept online orders and home delivery to remain afloat. New internet applications were set up to cater to the new trends, and even banks joined the bandwagon with cashless services. Young entrepreneurs such as Rahma Mandoor, who imports and sells children's products, have embraced the digital marketing wave.
Now we post our product on WhatsApp, Telegram and Facebook and explain to our clients the steps to purchase our products online, and then we deliver it straight to their home without any problems.
Rahma says e-commerce has given a boost to her business and asserts that even the older generations, who usually shy away from technology, have become active online users.
Sales increased by 60% after the coronavirus pandemic, and with time, clients have more confidence and trust in using online shopping. They have even informed us that they will continue with online shopping in the future.
And with Egypt's large population yet to be fully tapped, amid rapidly increasing internet penetration rates, e-commerce is expected to maintain its upward trajectory even after the virus is contained. Yes Hakim for CGTN, Cairo.
The Zimbabwe Stock Exchange is expected to continue on an upward trajectory in 2021 against the economic headwinds facing the country. The equities market was the best performing investment vehicle in 2020, registering a 968% growth in turnover. Here's Mahia Mutua with more details from Harare.
While it's still early days yet, the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange seems to be living up to expectations and has picked up from where it left off last year.
I think looking at the performance of the African market so far, just from the past 2 weeks, we will see that already the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange was, I think, close to about 6% up, and this is in actual real returns. And my anticipation is that we should hold strong in that regard, for the rest of the year.
The dearth of viable investment options will continue to buoy the local bourse.
When you look at the money market, the interest rates that are being paid there, they are negative real interest rates. When you compare them with inflation, where inflation is around 348%, and the interest rates that are being paid are between 30 to 70%. So you can actually see that investors will not recoup much in terms of interest earnings. The real estate sector, you can actually also see that it's very illiquid. People are holding on to sell in US dollars, and the prices in US dollars are not are too high for those who hold US dollars.
Unlike in previous years, local investors are expected to dominate activity. Concerns over the repatriation of dividends, as well as the abrupt closure of the exchange for 5 weeks last year, saw some jittery foreign investors take flight. The ZSE has lowered the minimum amount needed to invest to 500 Zimbabwe dollars, about $6 and set up a trading portal, paving the way for thousands of individuals to buy and sell shares directly.
Really, individual investors make up less than 5% of the participants on the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange currently. So this is a great opportunity. Zimbabweans generally have a high propensity to save. And, once you've saved that money, you want to make sure that you don't just keep it in a place where it loses value because of inflation. You want to make sure that you find a home for it where it can grow. And so the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange does offer that opportunity.
The ZSC says about 20% of trades have come through the direct portal already and plans to make further improvements to see the volumes grow. Farai Mwakutuya, CGTN, Harare, Zimbabwe.
To Cameroon, and a local bus manufacturing plant is making a name for itself in the transport sector there. Sotrabus, created to offer homegrown solutions, now supplies buses to 10 public transport companies in the Central African region. CGTN's Joy Kiruki Juma with the details.
Sotrabus is the first vehicle assembly unit in Central Africa. It specializes in the construction of 35 to 70-seater buses. Located in Douala, the economic capital of Cameroon, Sotrabus manufactures the skeleton and bodywork of buses. Its founder and CEO explains the idea behind the creation of the company.
We are part of the President of the Republic's emergency plan. We asked ourselves what we could do to put Cameroon on the path of emergency. Thus, we decided to create Strobus because we noticed that many transporters were importing their vehicles. Strobus will thus be able to allow Cameroon to be independent on this issue.
Mbafe says the company is locally financed.
There are no foreign shareholders in Strobus. It is a company under Cameroonian law, and it is 100% financed by the Cameroonians, and I am the boss.
The buses are used by several intercity transport agencies in Cameroon and Central Africa.
I placed the order for a bus and came to see the progress of the work. That's the big advantage with Sotrabus. With imported vehicles, this is almost impossible. It will certainly be necessary to make round trips by plane, and that is excessively expensive. At Sotrabus, we can ask the company during the manufacture of the bus to change parts or things we don't like, and they do it without any problem.
We used to buy imported buses, but these buses are already used, and they made us believe that they were brand new ones. This made us lose a lot of our customers. It is fortunate for us that a Cameroonian promoter created a bus assembly back here home. Strabus buses are very good quality. There is also the after-sales service, which is very well provided. When you have a problem with your bus, you can go to Strabus workshops and they will do the necessary work for you.
To date, Sotrabus has already manufactured and sold nearly 300 buses in Cameroon alone. The company produces 4 to 5 buses per month. It also employs more than 250 people. But despite the encouraging results, Sotrabus is facing challenges.
We have foreign customers who want to buy our buses, but we have difficulty related to taxes. The materials we import are taxed at the port of Douala. When we manufacture the buses and we have to export them to our foreign customers, they still have to pay taxes in their country. So we asked the government for a favor which will allow us to manufacture and export our buses more easily.
The African market is dominated by imported second-hand vehicles. But that's a trend that companies like Sotrabus are trying to reverse. Joy Kiruki Juma, CGTN.
I shall leave it there for now. But coming up on Global Business, Morocco begins a mass COVID-19 vaccine campaign. We explore plans by African governments to fund the crucial exercise. That's at the top of the hour. I shall see you then. For now, I hand you back to Mahia.
Penina, thank you. Well, still to come here on Africa Live. The Tokyo Olympics dilemma goes on with athletes voicing their opinions on the debate.
How would you create your legend? On the fields, on the tracks, in the arenas of Africa. Were you born to be a player? Could this moment be yours? Sports Scene, Find your game.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Time for the sport.